Morning. Check, check. Okay. What's that mean? Oh, I have to talk. I'm talking. Morning. Got my tech man here helping me. I'm late this morning. Yes, there I am. I had one of those mornings where it's just hard to get out of bed. I don't often have those. I usually just can't.
Taylor's in the house. Taylor Barnes.
Good morning, Taylor. Good to see ya.
Weightlifting.
Yeah. Mike is in a weird spot. Yeah. Here we go. We're good. That's good. It's like sideways. My face at a weird angle talking the whole time. All right, we're good. Good. Actually, my face will be at a weird angle most of the time anyway, because we're running Zwift off a laptop that I have to look at in the corner today. Because we live in a house that is, let me see, well, about 117 years old. And the electricity is somewhat ancient. So we can't have like a space heater running at the same time as the computers, or definitely not our washer or dryer. So somebody turned the washer on the other day without turning a space heater off, and then our main power breaker blows, and it like fried the motherboard on one of our computers, one of our personal computers. So just another exciting element of life in the Guerra home. Johnny, teasing me already? I haven't even started my stream. You gotta let me warm up a little bit before you start teasing me. Karen, morning. Hi. I'll just call you Karen. Good morning from now on, Mr. Noblet. All right. Also, I had to go ransacking my house to find a jersey this morning that was clean, because I'm behind on my laundry. Which is kind of always the case. Sometimes more so, sometimes less. Typically on my Tuesday mornings, we're in Watopia, so this is a little different. Riding the London Loop. I know they change it up differently, but this is new and exciting for my Tuesday morning chat. All right, well, hinted at this the last couple of weeks. Kind of thought that this might be a good topic to hit up one of these days soon. So here it is. I talk about weightlifting today, unless anybody else has anything insanely exciting or important that they want to talk about. For any of you who are unfamiliar, Tuesday morning I just do a recovery ride for the most part, unless I have something wacky going on in my schedule and I have to try to do a workout like I did last week. I feel so bad when people have to sit here and listen to me breathe. But whatever, I played some cool music. We made it work. But I try to have a topic to chat about throughout the span of my Tuesday morning ride. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about weightlifting and give you a whole bunch of reasons why you might want to do it if you don't already. Or if you do already, well, you might want to do it differently. All right, so let's see. Just need to make sure I have all my chat platforms up so I can interact with any comments as much as possible. Let's see. All right, so it's interesting to me, you know, like I think the best way for people to approach fitness in general, at least in the time and place we live in the world where, you know, a large majority of people have 9-to-5 type job that typically doesn't lend itself to a lot of activity, is, you know, to find a sport, a class, something like that that you love, that you enjoy, and let that be kind of what determines what you're going to do to stay active. So I think that's in general just like a really good approach for people, right? Like I think that a lot of time, you know, whatever, we talked about this a little earlier, New Year's rolls around, everybody makes their resolution to eat better, take care of themselves, right? Lose weight, whatever it is. Usually something along those lines is included in there. But if it's just like, you know, if your reasons or motivations for that are just like, well, you know, I kind of just want to maybe not be so fat and tired. That's really not like, it's not that kind of motivation that's going to be like, woohoo, I'm so pumped to go do this hard thing that I'm not used to doing. I can get a little sassy sometimes with how I talk about stuff. So if it's too much, Johnny, you tell me to rein it in, buddy, okay? So obviously for anyone who's using Zwift, I think it's highly likely you found your thing that gets you excited, gets you engaged, gets you active, gives you goals, motivation, right? Johnny. He says, calm it down, sassy pants. I know. So you know, every once in a while I get questions from non-cyclist people or non-endurance athlete types of what they should do, right? To try to like to be fit, to take better care of themselves. And here's one of just like ways for me that I think about weightlifting and why it's important. So if I were not a cyclist, if I didn't like love riding my bike and want to race and have goals, and it was a sport I really enjoyed, if I was gonna like prescribe some sort of fitness regimen for just an average person, right, who wanted to be fit, who wanted their body to be strong, healthy, and capable. So, right, that's where I start, is like, that's a good motivation, you know, that you want to have energy that you don't want your body to be achy and painful, and you want it to be able to enjoy or deliver whatever life might ask of it, right? You want to be healthy. You want to live into your later years and be the kind of grandparent that can romp around with your grandkids. You don't want to be in and out of the hospital having all sorts of surgeries. So, like, the desire to be healthy, to be strong, to be capable, to have energy so that you can enjoy your life to the fullest. I think that's a great place to start, even though that looks really different for each person and the dynamics of their life. But so if I weren't a cyclist, like I said, I would tell people if they were to do nothing else, that they should strength train. If nothing else at all, that would be like the number one thing you don't want to go without is strength training. And there's a lot of reasons for that I don't think I'm going to go into today, because I want to talk more specifically about how it pertains to cyclists, because this is the Zwift people world. But anyway, it's pretty common too to have, someone in a family or a relationship be the cyclist and the other one not. So talked about that a little bit before too. So I would say, like, strength training is a must. It's just the bedrock of having a strong, energetic, functional body. Funny story, maybe, me myself. I was not, like, people find this hard to believe. I was not a naturally athletic type kid. And like, oh gosh, what was it? Maybe even in high school. I think that's when we still got graded for, like, how you did in gym class and all the different tests and stuff. And I think I could never, like, run the mile. I could never finish it. And I was gonna F. But I remember, like, trying a couple different things and being like, ugh, I can't do this and I can't do that. But it was like in middle school, probably 7th or 8th grade, when in gym class they started taking us into the weight room for the first time and teaching us about weightlifting, and I was like, ooh, this I can do. So for me personally too, it's been something that I've done throughout the course of my life, almost always, and just had to, like, explore and look at in different ways. Yeah, Zwift community life. The Zwift people, not to be confused with the village people. That's right. Power to the pedal people. Oh, let me check out this comment here. Patrick Terry, hi, thanks for joining. I tell my patients their body is amazing at adapting to any situation. Your body is perfect for the workload you place on it daily, regardless if you're an athlete or a couch potato. Patrick, what kind of patients do you have? Are you a doctor? What kind of work do you do? Okay, so I have to finish drinking my coffee so that my brain starts working faster. Oh, here's a new one, Johnny. Here's my coffee container for the day. It's a mason jar this time. Bit of an upgrade from the tin can that the coconut milk comes in. Okay, so, all right, cool. Just finishing med school. That's awesome. There's so much good you can do with that. So many different like routes to explore. Um okay, so lost my train of thought. Hold on, I'll get it back. I gotta drink some water too here. All right, so a couple things in my brain off the top of my head here. One is, and I typically tend to try to avoid anything that feels like debating when it comes to comment in social media. But anyway, there's something that just that comment sparked in my brain about Patrick, what you were talking about there, how you deal with your patients, which I think is a super beautiful approach. It sounds very encouraging. But the only thing that like stands out to me is just the concept of like being a couch potato. And I think that I just think our people's bodies are made to work, like the way that we respond to it physiologically with all the like there's just so many wonderful things that happen inside your body, inside your brain, and the way that results in your thoughts and feelings and emotions. And then and even just the physical adaptations. It's like your body wants to grow and change and get stronger in response to activity. So so that's a part of why I say, you know, if you did nothing else, but then to strength train is because I just think that's the best and most efficient way to get at that whole process. And you know, like the world we live in, like I said, is just not conducive to activity right now. So it takes a bit of like intentionality to get around that. I like a lot of like if I'm gonna read books, right? I like, or even not that I really have time in life to watch movies these days, but I tend to enjoy a lot of like historical and time period pieces type stuff. And one of my favorite old movies is Old Yeller. It's like, I think it's a Disney movie. If it is, it would have been from like, gosh, I want to say the 50s or the 60s. But it's about like a pioneer family in Texas, and the dad has to go off for, I think, an entire summer. A really long time to go, like, I don't know, do a cattle drive or something. And the teenage son is at home, and he kind of has to like be the man of the house, right? But the mom in this movie, man, I mean, she's tough, no nonsense. I mean, it just gives you a glimpse of like what life was like, right? And she's out every day, like chopping wood, swinging an axe and stuff, right? You know, like in her fluffy skirts and her bonnet and stuff. And I remember that scene in particular just leaving an impression on me. You know, like even even like for me as a woman, a mom raising a family, even in a time like that, when you tend to think of women who were like just different than it is now. You think of them as very like proper, domesticated. But that mom is out there swinging an axe, and like butchering animals. Like tough stuff. I mean, she had to be really strong to do that. I know it's like a movie and an actor and all that, but whatever. It was the idea, the impression that it left on me. That kind of stuff was more built into like everyday life. So that's like kind of the gist of the premise for me with strength training in particular. But here's a couple things as it relates to cycling. Okay, reasons I think that. I mean, for one, I think that you're just general, average, anybody should strength train for sure. So that's just number one why I think you should do it if you're a cyclist. But there's a whole ton of other reasons. And actually, I find a lot of cyclists or endurance athletes or runners tend to shy away from it, which in my opinion can be really bad and detrimental to your long-term health and your performance, especially your performance. So here's another example that might just get you thinking about it. So for me, my own life, Nathan and I started racing, gosh, what were we, like 21, 22, something like that. We started racing before we started having our family. So then we had our first, and I obviously didn't race that year. So for the next couple years, racing for me looked like a year on, a year off, a year on, a year off. And after our first year of racing at kind of like the entry level would be considered like a Cat 3 or Cat 4, I just jumped right to the Cat 1. So I was like, well, I knew if I was going to race in the Cat 2, I tried one or two races and ended up, on the podium, second or third. I was like, well, I could spend the whole next year out here, probably fairly easily finishing in the top spots, or I can jump up with the like longer races, tougher courses, tough chicks, get my butt kicked for a couple years, but hopefully get faster. So that's what I did. But then after we had our third child, it was almost impossible for me to keep racing. So there was 5 years in there where I didn't race at all, almost not at all. And for a chunk of that time, it was difficult for me to even get out on a bike ride. I tried to make that happen once a week throughout the course of my life, just because it was like, okay, I live in a house jam-packed full of people who almost never leave it. Like, mommy needs to go for a bike ride for a couple hours so she comes back with a little more sanity. But, there's a long time where Nathan and I shared a bike. I think I mentioned this before. And then I did a lot of running for a while because it was just simpler with a house full of little kids, especially when I had babies. It was just so much simpler to like put the baby down for a nap, throw on my running shoes and a jacket, and literally just run out the door, get in however much time I could, and then just be back. I didn't have to get my helmet and water bottles and pump up my tires and put my shoes on and feel like, there's something about, you just don't maybe feel like hour on the bike is worth it after all that. So there was a long time where I just ran. But one thing I did do through all that time really consistently was sport-specific weightlifting, because I had no idea if I would return to racing or when. But since strength training has always been a fundamental for me, All those years I kept doing very mountain bike specific strength training. And that's something that I kind of researched and explored intermittently over that time. So after 5 years of not much riding and no racing, I came back to race at the elite level in the Cat 1 / Pro Women category, and ended up second or third in the races all year long and on the podium. And people were kind of weirded out by it. No one was expecting that, including me. And honestly, I think just a lot of what I can attribute that to is, the fact that I did what I could to keep whatever type of cardio fitness I could. But particularly to all that, sport specific strength training. So, there's kind of a, testimonial, if you will, as to part of why I think it's important too. So, toss me a comment or two here, anybody. Let me know if you're trucking with me here, or if I sound like I'm just rambling. If I sound like I'm just rambling, I might need to go get another cup of coffee. Oh, Nathan Guerra. You're riding after me, honey. Deep view into our racing life here. Uh-huh. All right, so number one reason I think you should strength train if you're a cyclist, because I think all people should strength train for a healthy, functional, energetic body. But specifically to cyclists, there is huge benefit. Hey, Sismansky, yeah. You get your coffee too, buddy. Drink one for me. Because I can't get off this bike and go get one. That'd be really boring for y'all. All right, so what was I saying? Oh, okay. So obviously, in any sport, but particularly what we're talking about with cycling, is there's just an element of force and power that's needed, and you can train that with strength training. So, when you're climbing, right? When you're sprinting, the idea is that with strength training, you work those sport-specific movements against a force. You use the elements of force, power for sure, and speed. So, okay, you have speed, right? It's how quick you can move. You have force, just how heavy you can move. And then power ends up being the combination of the two, right? So how quickly you can move the mass or get it moving or keep it moving. So, with, your legs contain some of the biggest muscle groups in your body. And if you can train those, especially during an off season, if you can raise your ability to put out more force, speed, and power, then once you get on the bike and you start to apply that power to turn in the pedals, to turn in the cranks, and then slowly over time, your threshold, your cardio, your ability to keep that power moving at a steady pace goes up too. So, that's an awesome thing. right there. It's something I notice happens to me every winter. During our off season, I hit the weights hard. Once time comes around where, like we've been in right now for the last couple of weeks, that it comes time for me to go hammer on the pedals, where I got to turn them over consistently hard for that kind of up to 20-minute time if I'm doing threshold work, especially if I'm climbing, doing force work, doing hill repeats, or like a long endurance hilly ride. Oh man, do I notice it. I mean, it's just there. This is a real thing, people. It's for real. All right, let's see. Comments. Well, I'll let you men keep talking about air conditioning over there. Have fun. That sounds fantastic. All right, second reason. Third reason. I think it's super important for cyclists to strength train is because what I'm doing right here, right now, is the epitome of repetitive motion, which makes you prone to overuse injuries. You have certain muscles in your body that are being activated, used, strengthened doing this, and certain ones that are being highly neglected. So if you don't want to be the cyclist or runner, I guess, whatever, who is constantly dealing with aches and pains, pulled muscles, who puts in an incredible season training, getting awesome power, and then is sidelined by something weird like a pulled muscle or tendonitis, then you should strength train. I mean, gosh, how often do you come across that, right? Sad. Just sad that people put in so much time training and then they have these wacky injuries or overuse injuries, right? Like, I've known so many runners that end up with, they're either like retwisting a weak ankle, tons of knee pain, right? Just crazy knee issues. And they just keep going through it, pushing it. But a lot of this is true for cyclists too. So, you hear it almost everywhere. I'd say probably almost everyone you talk to who spends a significant amount of time turning the cranks on a bike is gonna have upper back, lower back, hip, or knee issues. It's like I'm tempted to like take a poll and see what the percentage is of people dealing with that kind of stuff. So, yes, Mike, like tendonitis in the knee. How common is that, right, for cyclists? And part of that is the force action that is put on your muscles when you strength train puts this like urgency on your body, on your systems to actually strengthen your connective tissues. So that's that's where I don't want to talk through all the science of it because that just gets boring for people. But one of the like an extreme example of this gone wrong is how endurance runners can tend to have bone density loss issues, right? Like, not even, it's gone beyond the realm of like your connective tissues to your muscles being weakened and taken away from. I mean, the next step is like with your bones. So that's one of these processes that's triggered by your muscles having to move and react to something heavy, is that it will strengthen your connective tissues. And then you're just plain old less prone to having those overuse injuries. For one, because like your supportive muscles in your body then are hopefully getting to see a little bit of action too and getting stronger. And then, like I said, for two, your connective tissue is so important. I mean, most athletes don't even think about the health of their tendons, right, or ligaments. But I mean, you can spend all this time making your muscles and aerobic system all strong and efficient. But then, like I said, you get some sort of tendon issue somewhere and you're shot. You can't use the rest of that stuff. So, there we go. That's another one. So, next one would be that idea of strengthening your supporting muscles. Why that's important. I'll give you an example of someone I know. So, after an intense effort or a sustained, sub-intense effort, threshold type stuff, after a certain amount of time, I think they say like 30 to 60 minutes, your major muscles will just plain old start to fatigue, right? You can slam as many gels down the hatch as you want, but at a certain point, your body just can't catch up with that quick enough, right? So that's why like people who do really long endurance type events, right? If you're going to be running for like 8 hours, a whole day, crazy stuff like that, there's just no way, those people end up in probably, well, if we're talking about in relation to what we understand with Zwift, like a zone 3-4 for maybe their power and heart rate, due to the nature of that. So your major muscles tire first, and then your body will start to try to but start to try to utilize or default, that's a better word, default to your supportive muscles to try to keep the motion going. And if those are really weak, you're not going to be able to keep up that same degree of intensity. So I'll give you an example. I have a dear friend and someone who's been kind of a mentor in my life. She's a marathon coach. She's got like a PhD in, I don't know, all sorts of cool exercise stuff. So she's in her 50s, and this woman is she just slaughters every marathon she enters. She's incredible. But she told me this story once about how, she had read about some of this, about training your supportive muscles, right? So for her as a runner, I guess, the arm motion, right? This thing is what helps set the tempo or the pace of your legs. So she spent a whole off season training. She would hold like little hand weights, like 3 to 5 pounds. And she said she would look at the clock for like 10 minutes and she'd just whip her arms at like a 90 RPM, right? Because that's the ideal runner pace, I guess. She'd do that with these weights, like for like 10 minutes, maybe more than that. I think she worked up to 20. And that next marathon she did, when she did her next season, she shaved off 20 minutes from her time from the year before. And this is a seasoned marathon runner. 20 minutes. Like, that should blow your mind, right? You get what I'm saying here? I missed some comments. Let's see. Yep, so there we go. Yeah, people are understanding hip and knee issues. Yeah, your range of motion becomes limited. Let's see. Lifting children. Johnny says he hurt his back lifting children. Johnny, I'll have to pass on to you some of my favorite YouTube videos about how you use your kids to work out and strength train. It's fun stuff. I do yoga about once a week. And when I first started, it's hard. It's hard. You would not think it's as hard as it is, okay? It's hard. I'm telling you, if you're not doing yoga, you're going to be sore the next day after you do one of those. Like a good one, a hard one. And now, whenever I try to do them, the kids just climb all over me. And I just let them. It used to irritate me. But now, I have enough strength and balance that I can still do some of these poses and motions with children crawling on me. It's like the next level of adaptation. All right, another just kind of cool random reason is if your muscles are strong throughout the course of your body, you will have, like I said, your connective tissues will be stronger also. Your bones will be stronger. And when that inevitable day comes, that you go flying over the handlebars, you are just plain old less likely to walk away from it with broken bones. I mean, that's something I think about, right? That's something you should think about. If you're going to be riding a bike really fast outside, especially with other people all around you who are all twitchy and the adrenaline's flowing, and all you men are I can't get dropped from the pack. I got to stay with these fast guys. I got to stay in this guy's wheel. That guy's not going to be faster than me. And then the wheels are just like this. And then somebody's wheel accidentally nicks yours. And then there's 10 of y'all on the ground. Or for us, on the mountain bike, right? Dealing with crashing is just a reality of mountain biking. I try to brace and train myself for that reality. So, because I want to be able to go out, I have to come home after a hard race or ride to a house full of 5 children. I can't do that crap with broken arms. So, there's another reason. But I hope you're hearing me here about just the reality that it is a fairly simple and not very time-consuming way to help increase your performance. I mean, think about the hours that you spend on a bike. I weightlift once a week. Once a week, I'm at the gym for maybe, if I can whip through my workout, it'll take me an hour. But I tend to just blab and talk to people. It takes me about an hour and a half. So, shocking, right? Me blabbing and talking to people. So that's huge. So I would, I would recommend to anyone who's cycling to try to weightlift once a week for at least half an hour, and to try to get even just a 15 to 20 minute yoga session in. There's an insane amount of resources for that online. You can so quickly and easily do it from your own home. Oftentimes when I have a recovery day, I'll hop off the bike, go straight to the TV, put my yoga video on. So that's another thing that I think is huge. Yoga is so great for motion, for flexibility. It's something you need hugely is flexibility for balance. and for working all those supportive muscles that I was just talking about. All right, so one of the other big reasons, you guys, is lifting, if you do it right, which is not as hard as you would think it is, will help lean you out and cut you up. It just plain old will. It's almost laughable to me. Like, I mean, not in a condescending way, but just like the idea of being afraid of bulking up from weightlifting and strength training. Like, bodybuilder guys, I mean, they have to hit the gym 3-4 times a week. They have to make sure they're like jamming protein down their throats all the time. It's a lot of hard work to try to get bulky, to try to gain muscle mass. Your body actually has the ability to take your fat cells and use them to help strengthen and rebuild your muscles. So I think it matters for your sport, the type of weightlifting you do. So traditional regimen for weightlifting will tell you do 3 sets in the 12 rep range, right? I mean, does this sound really familiar to anybody? And I tend to think that that is kind of a waste of time and not going to give you the results you're looking for. Again, a lot of that stuff just trickles down from like bodybuilding, weightlifting, focus, and advice, kind of watered down for the general public, if that makes sense. So bodybuilders, what they will do is they'll work one specific muscle at a time, right? They'll do like one of these movements, right? And they'll start with, they'll try to cycle in and out. They'll start with like a 12 rep range, and then they'll kind of move down into 6 to 8, and then they'll do like a 3 to 5, and they'll kind of go in and out of that. And that's the kind of thing you do if you want, one muscle, if you want like specific muscles in your body to get bigger and more defined. So what we tend to lean people towards for weightlifting is a couple different things. One, I would say to work your way into that whole thing I was talking about with power. So the first thing I would say for cyclists is important to do multi-joint movements. So where you're doing a movement that uses as many muscles in your body at once in one movement, but that's leg heavy. And that tends to be because the nature of how your body is, because your legs are the strongest muscles in your body and the biggest muscles in your body. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? So you want to just avoid those like really isolated, like now I'm going to work my calves, now I'm going to work my hamstrings, now I'm going to work my glutes. So if you think of things like deadlifts, squats, particularly squats or lunges that incorporate an arm movement with it, which would look like a handlebar movement. Handlebar movements are just push-pull typically. You spend a lot of time on a bike bracing yourself against the handlebars. So that's that like push movement. So multi-joint movements where sometimes it takes time to work into them, but where the goal is to get yourself into the 5 rep range where you're not doing all these repetitions. If you have to move a large amount of weight quickly like that, it provides just more efficiently in less time that power response you're looking for, right? It's just got the element of speed. and force. It's what you want as a cyclist. So I say multi-joint movements, low repetitions, moved at high speeds. Once you get good at it, you always want to make sure that you have to make sure you have a coach for this kind of stuff. You just do. You don't want to hurt yourself. But this is like what I'm trying to do right now is cast vision towards like what you would want to work towards if you were to start any sort of weightlifting regimen. And you do have to work towards it. You can't just start there. So the other thing is plyometrics and balance movements. So that's why I think yoga is great, because yoga has, you're working all those balance and supportive muscles in a way that will strengthen them and actually make them more compact. Like, think about it. If you ever look at someone who's like a yogi, right? Like a serious yoga person, or like a martial artist, similar types of movements, right? They are typically like ripped, but like lean ripped, like really, really lean and small, but very muscular in the sense that they're like defined. So that's the kind of strength you want as a cyclist, right? You don't want big, bulky strength. So yoga has more of like the balance or the isometric movements. Isometric is like when you think of like a wall sit, right? Your body's in one motion, in one position, it's not moving, but your muscles are like tweaked to try to hold that motion. So for cyclists, I think isometrics are great. Things like, I hate planks. I don't do them. I let yoga be what incorporates my plank and core movements, but a plank and a wall sit is an example of an isometric. The wall sits are great for people who have issues with knees because of that. So the plyometrics is really quick movements. As a mountain biker, where you see a lot of this type of handlebar action, right? Like all the time, like we do clap push-ups. That's one of the, even though our weight strength training just rotates insanely throughout the course of a year, that's one thing that for me never goes away. I do them once a week all year round. It's probably the one exercise that doesn't rotate in and out. So anything where you have to like super fast, quick, explosive movements. So that would be like a box jump, a medicine ball throw. You throw the ball against the wall. You can incorporate leg motions like a squat into like a ball throw. So those like clap push-ups, you can start those up against a wall if you can't do a regular push-up yet. So that kind of stuff is super important for cyclists to have, like I said, that explosive power, but also that's the kind of stuff that will really help lean you out. And that's important if you want to be competitive in racing. Hey, Carol, thanks for joining. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you do yoga for your, flexibility. It's great. You got some metal and screws in your spine. That sounds like that came from something traumatic. Just trying to catch up on some of the comments here. Oh, Frank Deal had a great comment. Yeah, as strong as the weakest link. That is so true. Richard. Hey, Richard. Good morning. Let's see. Oh, you did a yoga and a roller session this morning. Yeah, and it does. If you're sore, those rollers can do wonders. Although, man, if you haven't stretched in a while and if you're tight, you could try to go do one of those rollers. It is like torturous. When I was pregnant with my first child, because of where we were living and what we were up to at the time, I didn't have any sort of access to a gym or anything like that then. And I don't think I had been really good at that time about stretching or strength training. And I remember like using one of those foam rollers to try to practice like breathing for contractions, because I'd like sit with one of those foam rollers on my legs in like a plank position, and it was just so bad, but so good. So yeah, Richard asked, is the strength mostly weights or plyometrics or a mix of both? It's a seasonal mix of both. So throughout the course of an entire year, in relation to race season and races, is how those things rotate and change. So during our race season, it'll be mostly body weight, yoga, plyometric, isometric type stuff. During the off season, it's almost all heavy lifting, barbell lifts, right? Deadlifts, power cleans, leg presses, rows, and then there's kind of some in between two of those. Those are the two extremes in my mind. And then there's some exercises that will fall in between those things, and we kind of rotate and cycle in between and in and out of two things throughout the course of a season. So Frank had said foundation training worked great for my back and hips. Somebody had mentioned foundation training to me before. Is that like core stuff? I assume it is, but let me know if you can. Yeah, Richard, so you catch the drift, buddy. Plyometrics leaves way less soreness in following days, which is why we tend to do that more during race season as like more of just a maintenance strategy for your power. Because it won't be taken away from your hard efforts and the bike. All right, you guys want to hear my last silly, kind of goofy reason why you should strength train? This is for the men. This is a men only comment. So if you spend lots of time, and possibly years, riding a bike, you get some rock star legs, right? But then you get this like girly upper body thing going on. And if you want your woman to look at you, oh, I shouldn't say that. Nathan said don't say woman. I'm just being funny when I say that. Your wife, your beautiful, strong, respectable female in your life to look at you and be like, ooh, yeah, I like that. Just go do some push-ups, man. I told Nathan at one point, I said, my biceps ever get bigger than yours, we have problems. I'm gonna make you do some push-ups. We never came close. That's good. Am I getting too sassy, Johnny? I'll leave that comment in the realm of personal preference. Yeah, there you go, Richard. You know what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh. I work out. Mondays is when I strength train, and someone in our race community trains there with me, and we like to just trade off on the exercises so we can run through it together. So we have to, if we're working the same machine or the same setup, we have to just kind of move things around and trade off with each other. So we were laughing the other day because we were doing like a step up, and we have to wear this big weight vest. It's like a 50-pound weight vest to provide the resistance for your legs when you step up. But then you hold barbells in your hand. You do like a handlebar motion up and then out, back. And we were laughing because I was like, we wear the same weight vest, right? I mean, this is like a guy who's a lot taller and stronger than me. And so we wear the same weight vest, but I have these little tiny hand weights. He has these big, huge hand weights. And I'm like, I can't use those weights. I have to try to keep my girly arms. And he was like, well, I have to try to get my manly arms. He's like, but I need something about girly legs, manly legs. I can't remember. It was funny at the time. Sorry. It's not funny right now. Oh, there we go, Frank. Postural poses to strengthen the back hips and open stretch. Okay, yeah, very cool. Counters the realities of desk sitting. That's what the foundation strength was. Sounds super similar to some of the things that yoga provides. Okay, let's see. Sismansky, if you were a new cyclist and your race season was right around the corner, where to start with strength training? That's a good question. I think I would, for the most part, stick to the plyometric type stuff. You could experiment with some cable exercises. And by cables, I don't mean like the rubber bandy types that you like put around something. I mean like the machines that have the cables. And see how much you can push yourself with those with weight and lower reps without getting too sore. One of the kind of staple strength training things that I think is good for cyclists that would be probably the only like more heavy weightlifting type exercise I would consider at that point in the season would be a single leg press. So, obviously when you're turning the pedals on a bike, it's a single leg motion. Your legs trade off with that motion, which is another thing that lends itself towards imbalances. So a single leg press is, where you use the leg press machine, the kind that you have to kind of sit back or lay back on, and the weights are in a big platform above you. So you would want to put your legs in that position where, if you look down, about crank width apart, right, where your legs are when you are turning the pedals, but you do it one leg at a time. You do them one-legged because that more closely simulates your pedal motion. So, and then what you want to do is almost all cyclists will have a weak leg. So you let your weak leg set the weight and the reps of your exercise, and you make your stronger leg, you limit your stronger leg to what your weaker leg can do until eventually over time, hopefully, that evens out. But the reality is it just might not if you spend a significant time on a bike, but you have to do the best you can to try to constantly coax that weak leg up to par. And that there in itself will help. Even just that one simple thing, right, will help try to eliminate or, the issues you might have with a hip or knee. But yeah, it's good. It's if race season's right around the corner, it's a lot more troubleshooting to start a strength training program. You just have to be, because there's certain exercises that to do them quickly, efficiently, explosively, which is ideally what you want for cycling, you would have had to kind of lay a foundation, a base of being able to just slowly, carefully, efficiently work that movement and build up your strength for it so that when you go to use it really powerfully, you built a base and you built up the muscle and that range of motion already. So that's why I think maybe cable exercises would be a good place to start. And then from there, you could experiment with plyometric movements, explosive, quick movements. And you just don't ever want to do anything that's causing you any sort of pain or like those little kind of tweaky sensations you might have in a knee or hip or ankle. Yeah, so Michael, if you have a really obvious imbalance like that, your cycling could greatly, greatly improve from strengthening that weaker leg. So that's something to focus on. If you have a really significant imbalance, you might even want to just do one of those types of exercises on just your weak leg for a while and see what happens. Or maybe, 2 sets on the weak leg, 1 on the strong leg. Yeah, and see, that makes sense to me that if your knee issues started at a higher cadence, because it's that same principle I was just talking about, where you need to lay a base for that muscle to get it's like base strength to get the functional movement, and then once that's there, you can start using that motion, movement, and muscle in a way that's faster and more explosive. This is another reason why, see, a friend of mine, she used to be a soccer player in college and recently decided she wanted to start playing soccer again. But after like years and years of not doing it. First game, like went out and tore something. It was either her ACL or something in her knee. Because all of a sudden, she's trying to do these quick boom, 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 back and forth explosive movements. And the base strength of those muscles she was using wasn't there. So when you start trying to use a muscle more explosively or quicker, it really matters that it's had a base strengthening time of that motion in that muscle first. And then the other thing is, if you're riding a stationary bike a lot, you're not having to balance the bike at all to keep it up. So there's more of a chance of developing those pedal stroke imbalances. So I just say pay specific attention to those. Like our trainer tends to lean a little bit to one side, so we actually have to kind of prop up the leg on that side more to try to even that out so that your hips and your bottom aren't compensating for the lean on the bike. Because if you're out riding on the road, the lean of the bike is constantly changing, right? It's just constantly doing something like this, and your body is making these little shifts in response to it. So that's something I actually try to simulate while I'm riding. I don't like using one of those front wheel. What's the name from? The thing you put your front wheel in, where it's like to try to keep it from moving. I actually, on purpose, will just move my handlebars around a little bit when I'm riding the stationary bike and try to just lean my core from side to side to try to counteract some of that. Try to get up out of the saddle as much as I can. Soccer is your first love. Oh yeah, I think I saw you have like on your Facebook page, you have a picture of you playing soccer. Looks pretty serious. Well, I talked for a really long time today. I'm done. I'm sweating like a beast. I didn't turn a fan on today. Sometimes I do that. It's good to just sweat it out. Not when you're racing hard, though. Oh, that's not you. That's the professionals. Well, it looks like you. Had me fooled. All right. And take a moment here to drink some water. See if anyone else wants to say anything. Oh. Thanks for those of you who joined in the comments. Like I always say, it makes it so much more interesting, especially for me. Mike took you to Wisconsin once, roughing for soccer at the pro level. Weightlifting stream rocks. Oh, thanks, honey. All right, you guys. Well, I am gonna sign off here. I hope you all have a great day. And take me seriously about lifting some weights. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention too is I'll link some of this in the comments. For those of you, like I said, I think it's really important to be able to have a good sense of motivation and just find something you enjoy that you want to do. So if like just lifting weights in a gym is not fun thought even for people, and I understand that. Like I'm oftentimes the only girl in there with a bunch of big sweaty grunting men, and that's just not for everybody. It's just not. But for me, I can just like joke around with them and give them crap about it. But there's a lot of other ways you can go about doing that, especially for the ladies. There's a lot of really creative classes and communities out there right now centered around strength training because it's more of a rising trend right now. So there's something called and I know that there's a lot of other things like this too, but the only one that comes to the tip of my tongue and the top of my mind right away. And says, Mansky, you're good about looking stuff up for me and linking it. So it's something called Wolfpack Fitness, right? So again, it's because it's based around this idea of community. So these people will, they form just like this group, and people host these things like at their homes. This is kind of like how CrossFit started before it got all weird. So people will, and not that I have anything wrong with CrossFit, it's just really different now than when it first started. So people will host these things like at their home or at a community center or wherever they can. And then they set up these like just nature style obstacle course type strength training things, right? Where they're like, and a lot of it is team oriented, where they'll have one of those big huge like tractor tires, and you'll have to like flip it from one end of a thing to another, and that's part of the obstacle. And then the other person you're working with will have to flip it back to where it was on the other side, or you have to I don't know, like throw something or climb something, or so just throwing that out there is as just there's options. There's tons of options. And so that particular one was Wolfpack Fitness. And I don't know how much that's grown yet, but I know there's just so many things out there that are so similar to that. I mean, even your typical local YMCA, or if there's a gym in your area that's a little more like creative and cutting edge, might offer things like that. So that's worth checking into if you don't want to just, go to the gym and do your typical like lift a heavy weight. So yeah, there's lots of room to be creative with that kind of stuff, because I think if you find something that you like and enjoy, you're so much more likely to do it, to just actually do it and make it a part of your life. So yeah, that was the last part that I really didn't want to forget. I'm glad I didn't. Boot camps, curves. Well, curves is, yeah, I mean, that's the idea. That is an option, just ladies only. You can get through those. Typically, those aren't geared toward like what I would consider valid strength training, but it's something. It's something for just people who want an option to get fit. So yeah, boot camps. There's all sorts of interesting things. But I was super impressed by this Wolfpack Fitness thing because it had a really great sense of community, and the way they encouraged each other was super cool. Oh, Richard, let's see. Those things are huge in the UK, based on military fitness kind of boot camp sessions. Yeah, way cool. All right, well, I'm going to sign off here, you guys, and see if I can... I'll link a couple YouTube videos and that Wolfpack Fitness website, just as a point of reference. Like I said, I don't know how much they've grown or how accessible they even are, but I love the idea of how they do that. So, all right, thanks again, you guys, for joining the comments. I love it. I appreciate it so much. Hopefully I have something interesting to talk about next week. All right, thanks, you guys. Have a great day.